Hi, everybody. This is Jim Saffron with Pure Vintage Media, and welcome to our podcast interview. Recently, I spent some time with Francesco Balossino, who's the proprietor of Cesco's Corner Guitars in Tortona, Italy. Now, you may not know the name, but if you're involved with vintage guitars, amps, or devices, you're going to know who Francesco is. He's a world-renowned expert. And if you were to ask him, I think it's undeniable that his first love is vintage and rare Fender guitars. So I ask you to please join me in welcoming to Pure Vintage Media, Francesco Balassino. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Pure Vintage Media. And this is our podcast interview. And we're talking to Francesco Balassino. I hope I got that right. And
Wonderful.
okay, great. Proprietor of Cesco's Guitars. Um, Wow. It's nice to talk to you, number one. I feel like we've passed each other in space on Facebook a number of times. I've had some questions. I've commented on some of your posts. Um, and if you guys don't know, do you go by Cesco? Is that a nickname or?
Oh, listen, yes, the name is Francesco, but it when shortened by friends in Cesco, and it stayed. It remained there since it was long to say Francesco's corner guitar, so it became that, remained
Right,
that.
I forgot the corner. So Cesco's Corner Guitars,
Yeah, yeah.
and Cesco is a wow, I would call him an expert on all things Fender, especially Stratocasters. And I wanted to get a little bit about your background. I know that you started the site what in 2021. Is that correct?
Yeah, the website started in 2021, but the activity started early on, and officially I started creating the Facebook page in 2012. And but basically, I've been always surrounded by guitars thanks to my dad, who is a lawyer actually, but one of those lawyers that has a great passion for music. And when he was young, he used to play guitar, especially Fender, Stratocasters, and Telecasters. But he had a nice collection with various guitars, from Gibson Chet Atkins. A
Mm.
classical electrical guitar to Martin D41 and stuff like that. So he got me into this, but basically the day I was born, he was coming back from a gig, deluxe reverb in hand and Stratocaster in the other end. So call it fate, call it whatever, but yeah, my life has been always around these things. And but even if I always like to play them, I was also intrigued by why these should sound better or any better, or why. And because my father always told me that these old guitars sounded just better than the newer ones. And he also gave me the transmitted me the idea that if you wanted to have something real, you should get the original one, not the copy. And of course, you start with the copy. Everyone did, from Mark Knopfler with a cheaper copy of a Fender, to younger guys that get the Squire, or you get the copy first, and then when you can and when you understand that that is the way, you just get the original. And the
I
same happened to me.
I agree with you at one level. Old wood, the wood that was used in guitars back then were allowed to grow naturally. The grain is tighter. In today, at least here in the United States now, it's not artificially grown, it's still grown, but it's like on steroids. And it doesn't,
Yeah,
if you
it's
compare the grain, yeah, if you compare the grain between wood today and wood from say the 50s, the it's much tighter on the older wood. Um, I've only had luck. I think I've had maybe two or three really old Fenders, and there is something magical. When I was a kid, I played with wooden blocks. That was when you were younger. Imagination really played a part in how you spent your time as a kid. They weren't fancy toys. We would make things with blocks, And the wood back then had a specific smell to it. And when I've gotten an old guitar, an old Fender specifically, that the odor of the wood takes you right back, just like the lyrics in a song can transport you somewhere. All of a sudden, you just remember the wood, how it used to be. And unfortunately, you don't have that scent anymore. It's different. And, but I had an Esquire, a late 50s Esquire that had that. I started Pure Vintage because I posted that guitar about 12 years ago in a couple of groups, and instantly I had people saying that's a fake. It's a parts cast. And I said, yeah, well, if you were here, you could smell the wood and you could feel how light it is. And even though it's been refinished, it's the real deal. And I always said if I was going to start a group, which I did, the number one rule would be you can't you can't post an opinion as a comment about authenticity or price. The polite way to do that is by private message. Otherwise, you're just one of those people on Facebook that want to hear themselves talk, create controversy, and then
Yeah.
potentially ruin it for a seller. Not all sellers have the experience that we do with vintage guitars. Some are lucky enough to inherit a guitar. They come into it totally innocently, and to see them flamed in a Facebook group is just bad taste.
Yeah.
I don't like that at all.
I've been battling with these things all my life so far. And the reason I started offering basically an appraisal service was precisely because there were so many wrong claims. And you would literally see the real thing being attacked like a fake and vice versa, the opposite. So the
Yes.
fake being praised as an original. So uh, I was really unhappy when I was seeing these things happening around me. But I also noticed that everybody of us has a specific talent. And my talent, like it or not, was to spot a fake miles away, even from pictures. And so far, this is basically where everything began, because this thing has made me a lot of friends, and enemies, of course, because I always say that every every time you save somebody from a fake or a bad deal, you make a good new friend and a new enemy, because the seller is not happy when you prevent a fake from being sold as original. But regardless of that, mm, the road has been very long, and I noticed that for Fender especially, you really need to study a lot. A thing that in the past was not even imagined, because um, I mean, one of my greatest encounters was with Gil Southworth, with a guy that I learned to admire. Honestly, at first I was already admiring him from the books, from the quotes, from the beautiful pictures and stuff, and the stories. But then we got in touch, and I mean, the guy is really amazing. And one day he told me this, and I think it's very, very true. He said to me, "Listen, Francesco, I do not understand how can you possibly do this today, because when we started back then, we only had originals, and
Mhm.
originals that were modified, but not even that good, because in the 70s, a modified guitar was pretty apparent, So
Right.
he said to me that before the 80s, when the Japanese, repros, and then the Fender American Vintage reissue started, but again, they were so different in every and any detail from the originals. So he said, before that, it was really quite an easy job. You just needed the passion and some money, and not even that much in the early days,
Right.
because even if these were still already, expensive, but not nothing comparable to what they are today. So he told me that, and he was right, because honestly, I started from the very bottom of it, studying exactly all the Japanese stuff, all the things that I could afford when I was a 15 years old boy. And but my talent is my memory. I have a very great, so far, and until it will remain, photographic memory. So I really learn fast when I study something, and that has been helpful with my studies in architecture and in anything I do every day. So and then I was also very much passionate about this world, and I really wanted to understand why my father's 65 Strat was playing better than these newer ones. So also custom shop that supposedly were the exact same, on paper at least, but
On
that
paper.
wasn't the case. So the thing is that today, fast forward 20 some years, I have studied them all, my friend, from vintage reissues, and I couldn't stand. I mean, the headstock shape of the reissues was wrong. The materials were wrong. The decals were wrong. I mean, nothing was correct to the originals. And in a way, that's a good thing because it's easy to spot them right away. But again, I was always checking the details that were different, and this use became something normal when I check a guitar right away, and I could notice immediately the odd spots. And another dear friend of mine, Tom Guerra, actually it would be Guerra because he's an Italian American. So he's a dear friend, and he always told me that there is a rule for him, and I agree, of the three red flags. So if a guitar has three apparent red flags, run away, or at least advise who is interested in it to check it further and with really carefully. So growing up, I just started helping people from all over the world, and who knows me knows that 99% of the time I never asked money for it. And in fact, I'm not that good as an entrepreneur. But I have made good friends, really good friends, everywhere in the world, from Australia to New York City.
You just hit on two of my favorite people. Gil Southworth is an original.
Yeah,
He can be blunt, but he always has a humorous side to it. And I don't know anybody that goes back that far like Gil. He used to post pictures uh, of like 15 Les Paul Juniors in a row standing right.
yeah,
And this was before Photoshop, and you're going,
yeah.
well, that's the real deal. He's got that many, and
No, but
and
but he
they're all
also
mint.
made those composition with many guitars on the floor or stuck it near a skyscraper window like
Yeah,
birds and things. It was incredible. And another thing that I think I have in common with Gil is memory, because he might be like might seems like he doesn't care, but he always seen everything. And every time there is a guitar that he has briefly owned, for half an hour in 1985, he remembers it,
oh
and he has
yeah.
pictures of it. So some times ago, he reached out to me and said, Francesco, I believe I've got your guitar back in 1985. And the Dan was right. This
Look
is the
at that.
picture of my foam green Strat that I will show you in a second, that Gil owned back in 1985. He sent me two pictures. This one is even more crazy because it's among Burrs and 335s. Actually, the 335 dot in here is one of those that went to Mark Knopfler. So, so,
Really?
so yeah, yeah, yeah. So this is quite a picture, and in a second you recognize the guitar that then went to Uncle Lou in New York City. You
Sure.
recognize the setup
Oh
of the
yeah.
picture, and then it's here in
Look
Tortona.
at that. Look at that.
So this guitar was, I believe, after Gil, it went to Macchia Suda. It was posted in two books of his. It's the original foam green Strat that they found from the original owner in 1985, and has been collected since. But again, the magic of these guitars to me is exactly this: the stories that interconnect and get shared around the world. And for me, every time I get somebody, an owner, a son of an owner, somebody like that with a guitar, I always ask, do you have pictures from back in the day? Even crappy ones that maybe they think they are not worth it. They are, and because the story, it's all about the story.
It is.
Besides the great tone, great specific, and whatever, but also the story is what made these special. And I mean, it's the small things, man. But people like Gil really gave me such a great inspiration, and to do things right, to do things in a passionate way, and to work for who's coming next to, because making pictures, publishing books, publishing articles, the work you are doing right now, I believe it's a treasure that it's something that we will pass on to the next generation. And without your work, I wouldn't be here today. Maybe I wouldn't even be interested in these things. But
Yeah.
thanks to all this effort, my father's effort, the music that was played with these
Oh,
guitars made the magic, And I believe that connection is essential, because every time they ask us what is vintage, they say my 1988 Strat vintage reissue is vintage, and I said no, because Jimi Hendrix didn't play it, So you need some artists that made some special music, to make you interested in discovering which instruments he used to record that. So once I learned that the Eagles were playing 54 Strats, 59 bursts to record Hotel California, or Mark Knopfler a 61 Strat, or Eric Clapton a 335 from 63, 64 Red, or a burst, or a Black Strat, all that stuff. When you are asking yourself what did they use to make those tones, this is what created vintage in the first place. And that's why also some magical guitars from the same era didn't get that much attention or collectibility, because a Mustang, for example, or a 330 are not as desirable as a 335 or a Stratocaster. That's, same quality, but different specs, and not the same success with musicians. So all of these basically created the world we are admiring today. But some guitars were born special, and I believe that the design of these things that Leo Fender conceived back in 1954 to this day is still something out of this world. And I mean, they are really spectacular. And I'm, of course, a great fan of Strats, but
he would be amazed today. I mean, here was a man so thrifty, he would grab whatever was off the shelf, whatever
yes.
wood he could find. There wasn't that much engineering. There was for the things that he invented, but the fact that, these 4-bolt necks were meant to be replaced. Back then people would break them, and he wanted a way to quickly replace those without trashing the whole guitar. And I think he'd be amazed if he saw how people collect these, and people like you have discovered and memorized all the little nuances that make them what they are. You mentioned Tom Gare. I did an interview with Tom about 2 weeks ago. So he's on and it was a wonderful discussion with him. Um, he's also one of my favorites, but Gil, some of my greatest memories, and I haven't heard from him in a while, but I used to get these late night calls from him. And I'd understand every third sentence what he was getting at. Hilarious. He's definitely an original, and I love the
Man,
guy.
if you could get him to do the interview, I'm sure it will. I will be watching,
Yeah.
for sure.
Well, take a look. There are a lot of I've done a lot now. This month I've done about 10. I'm
Yeah,
interviewing one of the gentlemen from Mott the Hoople, keyboard player,
yeah.
tonight. He lives in Japan, so I'm pretty busy today. First off, you have two sons, one son,
Yeah, two. The
two.
the older one, she's Bianca. She is 8 years old, and the
Okay.
younger is Giulio, and he's 2 years and a half, and he's a complete pest. Like really, a
Will
joyful
they,
one, but
yeah.
he is so much work lately, but we love him.
Will he pick up this hobby of yours? What do you think?
Well, he does love guitars. He does love to come here and play with things, especially these
Yeah.
that he likes a lot. And now he's lately loving a 56 Mandocaster I have in blonde
Nice. Yeah.
because it looks like it's his size, but he's playing it backwards like Jimmy, left-handed. So I really don't know what's going on with him, but hopefully he will like them as much as I do.
I never kept my kids from, I never had, guitars that I've owned that are valuable have, I've been kind of a halfway house. So they come, I admire them for a few months, and then they're off to the new owner. So I've never had anything that I could worry about the kids destroying, and I never kept them from it. Now I've got some grandchildren, and if they step on it and it breaks, it's not that big a deal. I'd rather them do that than have them look at it in a display case where they can't touch it. That's my feeling.
Yeah.
You want them to be interested. Is your dad still with us? Is he still alive?
Yeah. He's from 56, so he's pre-CBS. And
Okay, he's close
no,
to
no,
my. I'm a year older than he is, so he probably liked the same music I did growing up.
yeah. I mean, he used to play in a band. They would play Eric Clapton, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young,
Yeah,
James Taylor. He loves James Taylor a lot. So I learned a lot of music through him, thanks to him and the musician that would come to the house. And yeah, he is still very much loving this thing. He would have never imagined that I would have done this, but he's happy and proud, sometimes worried because he's a lawyer, so he's kind of
yeah.
worried if any decision his kid would take would worry him regardless of the outcome, so
Well, he should be proud of one fact. I've never seen anybody dispute you
no.
when you're. I've never seen that's something to be said for that. People respect your opinion,
you,
and
you know i i
you're
have
certainly an
learned
authority.
I have learned long ago that the quieter you are when people are discussing, the better it is, especially if you have nothing to hide and if you are very sure about your facts. And many friends that will probably see this interview knows that majority of my work is just not seen, it's not
Yeah,
public, and but it's constant, and I have been helping very reputable and famous shops from all over the world for years for free every day. Whenever they need, they know that can ring me up and we can. Sometimes you just need, to discuss and confront something, because to me, a good dealer is somebody that always is open to questions. Also, if he has a doubt, he will share this doubt with somebody that can help him clarify it. Sometimes it's nothing important. Sometimes it is, and when you have at times very expensive guitar nowadays, you really need to be sure, because no, I mean, once you have described the thing properly, then you can ask whatever you want. But if you are missing something relevant, if you are mistaking something and then the guitar turns out to be bad or to have issues that you didn't see, intervening after the fact is always very complicated and delicate, and I always recommend to check everything before the purchase.
yeah.
After, I mean, we have sold things always, but can be very complicated because you not just focus on the thing, on the object, but also you have to, let's say, to create a way to connect between two parties that become distant, because you have a pissed buyer and it may be a proud and you know a
Yeah.
proud dealer. So pride and truth sometimes collapse and collide. So I mean, it's much more difficult than before the fact.
Yeah.
intervening, checking it, and get everything straight. But also because most of the people I have met, because there is this fear that Fender guitars are more easily falsifiable than Gibsons. That's, in my experience, is not true. In the fact that a Fender guitar can be analyzed in every single part. Every single part. You literally can check every single screw of this guitar. You
Right.
can understand if this neck belonged to this body from day one, or if it was replaced. You can check if the hardware belonged to this finish from day one, and so on. In a Gibson, you can't do that, and there are quite a lot of completely refinished Gibson guitars with a neck that is, of course, glued to the body. So once a Gibson is completely refinished and 30, let's say 30 years has passed on, it's not that easy to spot it. And I have seen several instances where a very good refin job from the 80s, 90s was not revealed by the dealer that really had no idea about that. So
Well, you know what they say? They say there's more 59 Les Pauls being sold than were ever manufactured.
yeah, that the thing I was reading something the other day, can't remember where, but they were discussing about how they kind of ruined the magic of those guitars with the incredible amount of reissues they made, because I was discussing this with a friend in the, let's say, in the 70s. If you saw early 70s, before 74, if you saw a Sunburst Les Paul, it had to be that, because a Sunburst Les Paul with PAFs was that magical guitar. And but after 74, they started making Sunbursts again, and then in the 80s and 90s, they started floating us with all these 59 reissues.
Yeah.
And nowadays, I mean, it's probably the most copied guitar ever. And we know from a fact that the early fakes, or let's call them reproductions, started in exactly mid 70s, because there were some luthiers in UK doing conversion already, and also in United States, and some of them were good. So
Hey,
there are many things that have been built. I honestly have appraised at least three bursts in the last 2 years that were actually made by Max and sold as original but refinished, or I don't know. So these things happened for sure. The thing is that I don't like when they try to say and spread the message that you can't tell. Honestly, you can tell if you don't know. But
right.
if you know, if you know, and if you have the needed time to do your inspection properly, there's no way that an expert will be fooled by these things, especially Fenders.
And it's one thing to do like a nacho, a faithful reproduction, and not only admit, but sell it as a reproduction, not an original. It's another thing to try and pass off a reproduction as an original. That pisses me off. And you're right, you do see a lot of that. It's uh, it's quite a thing when you were talking about a Les Paul in the early 70s. It's funny to think that they weren't even 20 years old then, 59,
Yeah,
when I was in high school, gosh. And nobody talked in terms of vintage. The best that I
no.
remember back in the early 70s is it was a collectible, but nobody used and when you think about vintage, it's a term that's borrowed from the wine industry. So it's not, you know, I've always used, first off, the name that we have, the only reason we picked it, we liked the way it sounded and it rolled off the tongue. I've never wanted the responsibility of saying what is vintage and what is not, because that's an endless conversation, goes on
Yeah,
forever.
But the good thing is that, as you wisely said and correctly said, that it comes from the wine picking. So it
Yeah,
comes from the Latin, and in Italian is still very similar. Latin is vendimia, in
right.
Italian is vendemmia, and the vintage wine would be that particular wine from a particular year where the taste and I mean many factors contributed to make it a special wine. So a vintage wine is a wine from a peculiar year where some many factors contributed to make it a special thing. So not all old wine is vintage,
Right.
exactly
Now,
like guitars.
if you've ever been fortunate enough to have a 61 Bordeaux, now that stuff goes down like grape juice. There's no bite at all to
Exactly.
it. Yeah,
And and this and in our field, which is particular, I believe it's exactly the same thing, but there are two factors that are involved, in my opinion. The first one is originality of the design. That's why I will never consider, a reissue as vintage, no matter how old it is, because it's a copy. So
yeah,
it would be like considering a copy of Jackson Pollock, like
right.
as as important as the original. Who cares? No, and that's also why when I've got several clients that got expensive, good guitars like master builds or whatever, but then they tried the original one and they got rid of the copy because sometimes your mind needs to have the relief of owning the real thing. Of
Yeah,
course, I can understand where a good copy might play a satisfactory part. For example, a very rare guitar like a burst, maybe you will never add the strength to pay that amount of money, or you just don't have it, or you don't program to have it. So you get a good copy. That makes sense to me because of you kind of needs that kind of tone. But on a Strat, nowadays I see the price. There's a lot of discussion, with pricing. A lot of friends that are concerned about the market and this stuff. And we have had a tough year. There's been wars in the world, suffering, a lot of unhappiness. So people in these times do not have the joy, as simple as that, to buy these guitars. You buy these guitars when you are joyful and full of
yeah,
ideas for your future and stuff. So this year has been tough, and they were concerned about the pricing. That, of course, after COVID went up, but
yeah,
the thing is to the roof, exactly. But I was saying that honestly, I don't think it's a price thing. Maybe it is in the way that, of course, the more expensive something is, the fewer people will access to it. But when I look at the new guitars pricing, and those new guitars, most of the time, um, the most advertised ones from the newer productions are copies of originals. Like now, the other day, Gibson offered this Marty McFly Back to the Future 345, and it was like over 20 grand.
it's
And I
ridiculous.
was No, I mean, ridiculous or not, they were all sold in a day,
Yeah,
all sold, and
yeah,
immediately on River for 80,000, 70,000, 50,000, and I was like admiring my 1960 original Stoptail Watermelon 345 for 35, and I was wondering what's wrong with people, but you know so the thing is that I don't think it's really the pricing nowadays, because these new guitar sell for a lot of money, really a lot of money. The Brazilian 59 reissues from Gibson retail at $20,000, and not the artist specs ones. $20,000 for a regular R9 with just Brazilian board, and people do buy that. So I don't think it's the pricing. I think it's just that we need to bring back the joy, and also the explanation on why these are so special. even though to me it's very evident. I mean, if to this day in 2025, Fender, Gibson, and Martin are basing their excellence of products on copies of the originals, that should be the answer. At least to me is today. This year Martin released the 1937 00028 reissue. I have here an original, and again, it's a very expensive guitar. I believe it's over $15,000. So if that is the market, and we all agree to reduce the pricing of vintage, I'm totally fine. I will buy more, and I will be happier. But then what's going on with the new guitars? Why people should pay so much for a copy? That's something that I don't understand.
I think that, not to get too deep, but I think there's a little fatigue about trying to fill an emptiness with some people with consumerism. So maybe if I buy this guitar, I can display it and I'll feel really good. But that fades pretty quickly. And that's the problem that I have with um God, I don't want to get into trouble here, but the whole Beauty of the Burst books series, it's like for me, it's all about the tone. And you can only look at this beautiful furniture for so long before you become bored with it. And I think a lot of people, especially young people, they don't have the money to buy this stuff. The older people are thinking, well, I got maybe 20 summers left in me, you know. And I think there's like a realization, and we're seeing it here in the United States. There's kind of like the Great Gatsby going on here with tearing apart the White House and building ballrooms that are bigger than and I think a lot of people are fatigued by that. I know I am to a certain degree.
Yeah,
I like the old stuff in its simplicity, and like you said, it does sound better. But I'm not into worshiping the guitar sitting in a display case hermetically sealed. That doesn't do anything for me. And
absolutely.
I think a perfect example of that is, Jim Irsay's collection. Yeah, he didn't find happiness with all those guitars that he owned. He fell into a deep depression, started using drugs again, and passed away. So
Yeah.
it's not always going to solve uh, your internal battle of
But
trying to
but this is something very interesting. Sorry to interrupt you, but
please,
otherwise I,
please.
I lose it. But um, I read the Jim Irsay collection will be up for sale, and it was something that really caught my attention because I clearly remember that the guy wanted to display the collection and made it possible for the public to enjoy it in a museum. And I believe that that was amazing. For some time, there was also an Instagram page where a guy was making videos of the stuff and telling stories. I mean, he assembled something really magical with very, very important guitars, inspiring pieces. But honestly, seeing that after his death, all of that is gone just because the people that remain don't care is something that hurt me because it would be like my kids one day would say, I don't care about what dad was doing, about his dream, about his project. And now these guitars, so difficultly put together by him with a lot of effort, now will be
Yeah,
spread again in the world. Maybe it's not a bad thing either. I mean, maybe they will find some new life, but it's very unlikely that they will be all in the same place.
right.
Uh, you know, maybe it will be a good thing, like they did with the Rory Gallagher Strat that remained in Dublin. Maybe, but I don't see this happening. I believe this sale is just about money,
Yeah,
and this is what I wanted to say. In my experience so far, with working in this field for so many years, I can distinguish immediately people that cares about money from those that really have the passion. And if you don't have the passion in this market, you will be easily disappointed by the ups and downs, by years like this year, that are
Yeah.
difficult because it was. I remember that when COVID hit, and I mean, we were selling guitars like it arrived. I made a shitty picture of it, like that, sitting anywhere in the floor on the floor, and then it was sold immediately. And then another one came in. So people thought that it was easy. It was an easy way to make money. So a lot of people try to jump in and make money because that's what interested them. I was probably one of the very few people, but not just me, but I was for sure that during that period didn't sell a single piece. I only bought guitars, and and that's it. I mean, if you have the passion, you will never care about the commercial value that other people determine about these things. I have here a broadcaster that I love so much. I paid for it exactly the double that costed in 2018, and I bought it 3 years later. So after COVID, exactly it doubled the amount. But this guitar here, it's
Beautiful.
0207. It's completely original. Was found in Nashville in 1985 and sold through Groom Guitars to a guy in Italy that kept it up until 2018 when I didn't have the $80,000 to get it, and because it looked like an enormous amount of money. And then after 2 years, the price was doubled, and now after almost 10 years, the price doubled.
Yeah.
But regardless of the price, even if you say to me, Francesco, tomorrow is going to be worth nothing, and I will say, well, it's worth something to me because every time I strum a chord on that November 1950 piece of wood, I'm happy, and that's all that matters.
Do you know Armand Serra?
Yes, Armand. Yes, sure.
I love not only do I love his collection and I love the books that he put together, but I love the stories that he tells about acquiring. And for me, you mentioned that earlier. That's the magic. How did you come across these guitars? Um, he just I think that's one of the and it's interesting. It's one of the most impressive collections that I know of. And
Yeah.
and he doesn't brag. He put the book series out, but he doesn't brag about it. He's more interested in the music that he's making, and
Yeah.
I like him a lot. And I think that's a collection. That's the way to do it. I love the presentation. There's a lot of white space. It's always it's always positioned beautifully. Um, a lot of dealers that are on my site they want to sell a guitar, and I'm amazed that they won't take the time to take good pictures.
I
Sometimes
know.
they're, sometimes they're, they got their feet inside in the
Yeah.
picture in
Well,
barefoot, and it's like,
uh,
come on.
I really love Jay Rosen in San Francisco, and
Yeah,
Jay only is notorious because he makes amazing descriptions, really, really super funny, and but spot on. You always get it all from just reading his listing, but then the pictures are usually not more than three. And the
yeah.
other day, he posted a beautiful, beautiful 54 Strat, and he posted like 7 pictures. And we were like, oh my God, what's happening to Jay? Because he, he posted 7 pictures with the internals. So we said immediately that the guitar must be very good.
Very
If he,
special.
yeah, if he did all the effort. But, I believe that there's two levels in this presentation thing when you are advertising something. The old school guy, I mean, Gil is a good example. Used to buy and sell this thing by reading very small description, maybe a blurry picture in black and white on magazines and newspapers, you know. So you kind of needed to have a sixth sense to understand if whatever that thing was could have been, like, for example, Sambar's Les Paul, and then it was a burst. And so the old school of dealers and collectors had way less technology and possibilities to determine if something was really good enough or not before buying it. And I heard stories from Italian collectors that in the 80s would get pictures shipped by post
Yeah.
and that would take weeks to get them and to understand if the guitar was good or not. Or they got the Kroon newspaper, the magazines with just a line with the ear.
Yeah, they were
The
typed. They were just typed
Yeah,
on a typewriter.
yeah,
Yeah.
the grading like excellent plus,
Yeah.
case present or not, but just a line. So you would take a line of words for choosing your guitars. So it was really different. Pictures, I mean, if you know about these, probably I believe 7 pictures are enough. Like a
Yeah.
close up of the front, close up of the back. I'm talking my Strat, like for
No,
example.
both sides of the headstock.
Yeah, full front, full back, close up front, close up back of body, and I mean, with those four, I can already know if the guitar will be something decent or not, and anything else is just something more. But nowadays, with this complicated market, I tend to prefer to post everything on the website already upfront. Also, because if you're interested, you will see everything you need to see,
Right.
and you will just choose if it's for yourself or not. But also for the future, it will also be helpful for me to retrieve info about the guitars. Otherwise, you lose your computer and you lose everything. I don't like that. So I like to post as much as the details as possible nowadays. But I used not to post the inside details some years ago. I don't know exactly why, but the reason was that the website was different. So I couldn't handle too many pictures onto the website. So I would just prepare the appraisal letter with the detailed pictures, and those would have been sent at the time of the purchase. But nowadays, I'm cool. Like, I like honestly how the website developed, and now I can post many pictures. And one funny thing that I noticed recently, that when I have a vintage guitar, I literally could stare at it for days. And the same goes when I have to take photographs of it. I would make so many details because there's always something that you missed and you like to underline or whatever. With new guitars, most of the pictures are paper. The COA, the the tags, the pics, the it's like what the hell is going on, you know?
Yeah.
So
Doesn't the I opened up a number of years ago, and I've posted this picture before. I opened up a old college textbook, and out fell. Well, I won't talk about the what really fell out of it, but something that wasn't legal back then. But out fell ads that I grew up in Los Angeles, and ads from the LA Times, the music classifieds, because I was
yeah.
buying and selling back in 73, 74. And I post those occasionally on the Facebook group just as a kick for people to see the prices. LG ones going for $100, but it's negotiable from 1959. And I inevitably people will call the phone number that's in the ad as if that person still has that number and landline, and they'll call and they'll say, "Do you still have that Les Paul for sale?" What's a Les Paul? It's just, but it's I think back, and for me, that's when I first started buying and selling. But again, we didn't call it. There was nothing. There wasn't a concept in the early '70s of vintage. Some of this stuff
No.
was 15 years old that now is 60 years old, and
Yeah.
it. I did want to ask you one thing though. And I'm always amazed at the variety of instruments, American-made guitars that ended up in Europe.
Yeah,
You know, when you read the early days of some of the early rock bands from like the 60s and 70s, they didn't have, when you think about post-war London, anywhere in England, they didn't have a lot of Fenders there. It was rare to have a Fender. I think
yeah.
maybe Hank Marvin popularized it, and then all of a sudden they came into vogue. But most of the brands that were available back then were German, Italian, and so I always wonder how these guitars. You've got a collection from hell, I mean, you've got a massive a collection, and I'm just wondering how these guitars got overseas like that.
Listen, this is a very interesting thing. And by the way, I'm finishing a big work on the Fender Stratocaster from 1953 to 1965. And I exactly discussed that because the impact that Hank Marvin got to Europe and to European people and passionate people about music and guitars was absolutely amazing. But and imagine that in '59, while Hank Marvin was uh, becoming a rising star with his Stratocaster, Buddy Holly, meanwhile, was dying in '59 in United States, but also had a huge impact, and they both created sort of a magic imaginary around the Stratocaster. But Hank Marvin music, for some reason, inspired for real and rooted in people from over Europe, an enormous fandom that to this day, I mean, you see two Vox amps behind me, AC30, both purchased from the original owners in Italy, both paired to what? 65 Fiesta Red Stratocaster because of Frank Marvin and the Shadows. And to this day, there are also still a lot of Hank Marvin and the Shadow bands, and I mean, sorry, a group of people that every year makes reunions and meetings and gatherings because they loved so much the music that everyone wanted a Vox amp, Ecorrect Benson, and the Fender Stratocaster in red.
Yeah.
And the
Mark
interesting,
Knopfler. Mark Knopfler totally
I mean,
inspired. Yeah.
Mark Knopfler was inspired to have one, so I mean, everyone else wanted it after that. But the interesting thing is that, for example, the official import of Fender guitars in Italy commenced in 1962 when Hans Bauer went to Frankfurt to the trade show and met Don Randall and brought home a couple of Stratocaster that he toured basically all the shops in Italy to showcase this and made and placed his first order to Fender, which comprised Fiesta Red Stratocaster and basses because he wanted to supply the famous bands of the time with these and these. In '62, we started to import them. So before that, the only guitars that we are aware of were two 1960 Summer Strats that were used by Ennio Morricone guitar players, and everyone in the world heard those sounds with with the films score that Ennio made. But those musicians were very very important back then, so they traveled also. So they went to UK and got these guitars, and one to UK and one to United States. And imagine the big deal of recording for Hollywood. Even back then, you were something really big, and so you could get the American guitar before somebody knew about it in Italy. So it would be just after 1962 that the official import was established in Italy for Fenders. But mind you, between '62 and 1966, a lot of guitars were ordered there. A lot of guitars, like crazy. And majority of them were Fiesta Red, Lake Placid Blue, and of course Sunburst. But I have one of the first Strat sent to Italy in the first batch with a prototype Italian case, and I got it from the original owner. And it's spectacular. So it's a late '62 production, early '63 delivery guitar, and that really represent that age, that moment. So yeah, we all the guitars that were earlier than 62 were imported in over the years by collectors. And thanks to my job, I've been lucky to help people from all over the world selling and trading and changing their guitars. So at times I would end up having in my hands a very special one and deciding to get it, to make the effort to buy it and keep it for me. And since I, as said earlier, I'm not a good entrepreneur, I ended up with all of these cases full of stuff. And then maybe one day my kids will sell them. I don't know, but for now I don't care. I mean, I'm happy with them. Everyone has a special story in my heart, and everyone came thanks to the relationship established with people and thanks to the help I provided them. And nothing comes easily or for nothing in return. But I must say that when you help people for just because you feel like it, not expecting anything in return, the good people will return to you a favor or something special when they have the chance. So that's my story so far. So
Do you go to guitar shows around the world? Have you been to the United States for any guitar shows?
I've been to United States, but not for a guitar show. I visited a lot of magical places in 2022. I wish it would be easier to travel for those, but now with customs, it's really complicated.
Very tough,
A-
yeah.
And you know that traveling with these guitars, if there is uncertainty about what's going to happen, let's say I come to the United States now with one of my guitars that won't be for sale, just to display it at the show, and they stop it in customs, then I mean, it's stuff that I
Yeah,
can.
it's got rosewood. We're confiscating it.
Wow,
Yeah,
exactly. Rosewood that you guys worked 60 years ago, like so it's complicated. So I wish I
yeah.
could attend more. Maybe it's easier to go there on a vacation and enjoy the show as as a tourist rather than a
That's
professional.
that's kind of
But
what I meant, rather than coming to certainly to buy some. And I there's only one show that I go to. I go to one in Dallas every May, and it's really, to be honest with you, I've gotten tired of going to guitar shows. I really like going to this one because they have three stages of nonstop entertainment, and I've met some wonderful musicians taping them. Um, the guitar shows seem different in Europe than they are here. They seem more like a festival, like
yeah,
food, wine, guitars, and it's.
yeah,
I was wondering, do you go to this? Is it the Suave? Uh,
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
follow?
Listen, I was a small kid and I went to Soave because there was Tommy Emmanuel playing. And
Oh,
Tommy,
nice.
to this day, to me, is one of the most
They're
amazing
great.
human being I have ever seen. I've met him twice, one in Soave 20 years ago, and recently at the last Soave Guitar Festival. And I also remember that the show looked to me so big, so
Yeah,
enormous, and but that was 20 years ago. When I came back a couple of years ago, it looked so small because I was little, not the
right.
show that was big. But the quality of the music that my friend Pier Paolo organized every year and the musicians that are there is just
Yeah,
insane. I mean,
yeah,
I went there when I was a kid, especially because I wanted to see Tommy playing live. And I remember that he was teaching because the entire city is active during the show, and there is like there is the show, then there is an old church where they make the how is this the lessons, the clinics with the artists. And I went to this church and there was Tommy explain. He just released the incredible version of his of Over the Rainbow with all the incredible harp harmonics effect at the
yeah.
beginning. And it was and somebody asked him uh, how to do it, how is possible to do that, and he was like, oh, it's very easy, it's very easy. And
Yeah.
we were like, man, that's not not
That's not
easy.
easy. Yeah,
It's easy just if you know how to do it, possibly, maybe. But I mean, I remember I was really stunned by the place. But yeah, that place was and is magical to me. I mean, there is quality, there is passion because Pierpaolo is one of the most passionate people I know. He grew up with the Shadows and that kind of music. He was a musician himself. So, and for example, after for the last 10 years, I've been hosting and organizing the Vintage Vault space in the big Milan guitar show that it's one of the oldest one in Italy. And we just finished it. It was last
I saw
weekend.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's another magical place to me because I started going at that very show, seeing the first vintage guitars a lot of years ago. And imagining that nowadays I'm the guy behind the organization, helping the other people that actually organize the entire
Yeah.
show.
Do you have entertainment at that as well?
Yeah, depending on the year, sometimes we make clinics, sometimes we just have the exhibit. This year it was a new location, so we needed to study it a little bit. So we basically made an exhibit of 70 very important vintage guitars, subdivided into teams. So we had the evolution of the Telecaster, the evolution of the Summer Strat from 54 to 69, then the custom color Stratocaster, then the Les Paul evolution with two bursts, and then the ES guitars evolution with some very, very cool models. So it was a lot of effort, but I we used this round table that people could go all around them making pictures and videos. And for the first time in years, I could finally see again kids with their dads taking turns in making photographs to have a memory in front of these things. I could see the glimpses in their eyes. And then I was happy because that is exactly what I think it's needed. You need to see the beauty of these. So there were no tags, nor papers to hide from the or subtract from the beauty of the guitar shown. And then ensemble was terrific and people loved it, and I'm very happy and grateful because I think that even if a year like this that for sales have been difficult, you still need to focus on what's matter and what's important, that is the passion. If there is no passion, and if we don't share the beauty of these guitars with the younger generations, they will never get it because nobody is explaining to them why they are important. But they are still listening to Stevie Ray Vaughan. And Stevie Ray
Yeah.
Vaughan would play with a vibroverb, an old Strat, and Ibanez, TS,
Of
pedal,
course.
and
Yeah, of course.
and do magic with those things. So they are still loving the music, and I believe that I know so many guys that owns dozen of copies, dozen, and I was one of them. I was a young kid, and I had anything from Tokai's Japanese from the 80s to normal custom shop, the vintage reissues custom shop from 2000s. And but when I got my first 64 Strat, I said, I have 16 copies. And you know what? I sold them all and never looked back. They were copies. I got the original. So I didn't need the copies. I mean, and another funny example, but it makes you think, it's Dick Dale. Dick Dale, one of the most amazing talents on the guitar.
Of
He had
course.
just
Yeah.
one, he had just one guitar strung
Yeah.
with insanely big strings, so that the neck was kind of warped, but who cares? He was playing the hell out of guitar, and he just got the same guitar repainted every 2 weeks just to be the coolest cat. So
So we were growing up in LA. We weren't watching. We didn't go see the Beach Boys. We went to
yeah.
see Dale. Dick Dale was the man. Yeah,
Oh man.
yeah, he was something special. Did you God, I could talk to you forever, brother. You're really you're a wealth of information. I hope to one day maybe go to your show.
Yeah,
Maybe I'd love to go to Suave. I learned about that from a good friend, Danny Boucher. I don't know if you know
Danny,
Dan.
sure.
Yeah, and he used to just rave about. Well, in Danny's way. He doesn't go over the top, but he would say those shows are so much better than anything you see here. I
Yeah.
can't hear. It just feels like there's a series on TV called Antique Roadshow where these guys just drag their antiques from city to city. They tell war stories on Friday night. That's when all the good selling happens between dealers. And by Saturday and Sunday, the public's allowed in and everything's overpriced. Uh, Again, the only reason I do Jimmy Wallace's show is because it gives me a chance to meet musicians and watch them play and tape them, and it makes all the difference. It makes
Yeah,
all
but
the
also the thing that I wanted to do this year was people would ask me, "Where is your booth? Where is your table?" And I was like, "There's no booth. There's no table. There's
good.
70 guitars to enjoy, you know." And
Yeah,
it was like a 300 square meters room, so a big room. And all of that just to be enjoyed, you know. Some of them were
nothing.
for sale, of
Yeah,
course, but that was not relevant, you know. The,
I
the
like
relevant
that.
thing, yeah. So the approach to me is that it has to be something that elevates the stuff from simple object to object of desire, like they are, you know,
Yeah,
and for good reason. So the thing is that I believe everyone in this business that really loves and cares about this, and need to think about ways to connect with the younger people, but also we need to really showcase to them and show them that these guitars have a more profound value, which is not just the economical value, it's the historical value. And
yes.
for example, I see that at times many people are having fun of Joe Bonamassa. And I don't like that because Joe is the only, I believe, the only superstar, because he's a superstar, that is still enjoying and loving collecting these guitars for because they have always been its life, you know. He's not pretending. He's really in love with these things, and he brings them on the road and plays the hell out of them,
Does.
showing
Yeah.
that you know. Sometimes you hear people that say that a 66 Strat is not reliable to play live. That's not what Jimi Hendrix would say, you know.
No, that's
And
right.
yeah, and so I really admire what Joe is doing, and I wish other artists would do like just. I mean, Eric Johnson is another exceptional artist that is playing his vintage guitars regularly live to this day. But they're just a few of them, too few of them still playing their vintage gear on the road. But again, we should be really grateful about what Joe is doing, because Joe is also doing, you know, videos in his free time that share with people, making pictures of his gear while he's cleaning his house. I mean, he's really what he's doing. I mean, I wish
You know
people
what? You
would.
know what? He's not showing off.
No, 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 no,
He's
no.
he's
Exactly.
showing history, which I
And
get what you're saying. Yeah.
but also is sharing the joy. You know,
Yes.
he's sharing a real joy, because whoever has been lucky enough to meet him in person is absolutely true. You know, he's not pretending. And I feel like the day that he will be tired of doing that, and sometimes with all the trolls online and stuff, he got really close to, you know, stop doing and sharing this beautiful part of his life, we will regret it, because he's just the only one, my friend. I mean, of that big of a musician doing this thing. So I think that we should really focus from now on to keep the flame alive, which is understanding that behind that incredible music, I mean, every time you hear Layla from Derek and the Dominos, from Eric Clapton, there is a Stratocaster with a maple neck playing,
Yeah.
and there's no substitute for it. You can have a copy, sure, but there's no substitute. There is the original guitar that you can get, and it's not that expensive, because even if prices have come up, if you look at them with all the price guides that every year were published and the historical data, the prices nowadays are exactly like 20 years ago, early 2000s, exactly the same. Then one day they went down, but they came up again. So actually, after COVID, the prices have been stable quite a bit. The only very difference that I noticed is that some guitars were just too cheap in comparison to their rarity. For example, a broadcaster was a guitar considered as much of any other blackguard. Like they are all the same, but they are not. A broadcaster is one of the most important guitar in history. So
Yeah.
nowadays people are asking $250,000 for it, and it's all original. I'm like, okay, I understand that. I mean, if you understand that in 1950 that thing changed the entire world, and
Yes.
to this day, is still, I mean, actual and usable. I mean, think about that, you know. So, and they made only 250 pieces of that thing.
Yeah.
So,
So when I was in school, I would, drifting off in class, I would be drawing pictures of headstocks. And it is amazing to see all these years later, they haven't improved on the design of those
oh,
Telecasters,
listen, I,
Strats.
I w- I was doing the same, trying to do this shape.
Right.
All my books were full of these, attempts on drawing a Stratocaster, and but again, if now that shape is so so much into my mind that I if I see just a mistake in an outline of a copy
Yeah.
of a reach or whatever,
Yeah.
I immediately spot it because it feels wrong. My OCD is like, no, that's wrong. So
Do you do you have some you showed a couple of them. Do you have some other ones you want to show before we wrap up? Do you have them out handy or are they all boxed up?
no, they are all here. Let me let
Some of
me
your
just grab.
favorites,
Yeah,
please.
yeah, yeah. Let me grab.
Look at that. You know, it's funny. People
Yeah.
have that background for these video conferences, and it's a filter. That's the real deal there, man. That's a nice. I could spend a year looking at your guitars. They're just very nicely presented. Now, this isn't your store. This is your house.
Exactly.
Oh, nice.
But again, basically, I was going to open a place to the public, but then COVID hit, so it just made no sense to do it. And
Yeah,
people started to come here. They loved the place. We are in the countryside, so there is no problem with, you know, being too loud, apart
yeah.
from when my kids are sleeping. But so we remained here, and now it's a bit, you know, crowded because there's so much stuff. But we will see in the future what will happen. But so far, I'm loving it, and I mean, I would just love to have more space to display them. However, this is a 1954 Strat with the nicest
Look at that. Of
maple flamed and figured neck. Hope you can see it.
course. Very
And
nice. Beautiful.
so this guitar was the first 54 Strat I got. I got it from my friend Bill Pandolfi from
In Florida.
Tallahassee.
Yeah, Florida.
Bill, yeah, Bill. I mean, I have been admiring him for long. He's a musician, and the story of this guitar is worth telling because he was selling this guitar, and to me, it looked like the most beautiful guitar in the world. But if you know Bill, you know that he is old school, so you need to read the description. And the description said the maple is absolutely stunning, curly figured maple, but the pictures were like just taken with not the right light, so it was like maybe, but he wrote that, so I knew it was real. But the picture were okay, let's say not bad, but okay. So we for a client of mine, we just arranged the deal, and he made the international wire. It was a few years ago, so things got complicated, and the wire was rejected. And this very rich Italian collector was like pissed, and it was we were approaching Christmas, and my birthday is December the 20th. So I then asked Bill if we could do something. I mean, if he would have taken a couple of guitars in trade, I would have been happy to get this guitar. But at first, Bill didn't want to trade anything. And I had two beautiful near mint 66 strats that I bought for 9 grand each, hoping to sell them for 10, 11, you know. Bill traded. I tried to offer them to Bill in trade, and he accepted, of course, at 8 each. But 8 each would make 16,000. You know, so I wired other 16,000 that I had and got this guitar. When it
Beautiful.
arrived, when it arrived, I literally went in town searching for the FedEx driver because I couldn't wait for them to, finish the ride and come home to me. So I literally stopped the wire in the main square of my town, and got the guitar, went back, opened it, and then I literally lost my sleep that night because this neck was beyond incredible. And look at it.
Did, when that was made, do you think they recognized that that was a beautiful piece of wood, or was it just
Yeah,
another piece of wood?
yeah. This thing was made in August '54, and Forrest White, in his beautiful
Sure.
book Fender: The Inside Story, specifically tells the story about this because he said that when they were launching the new products, they would use these special necks to promote for promotional guitars,
Got it.
because for Forrest, the official production started in October '54. So August '54 was still a guitar that went out of the door to some artist, musician, or dealer, you know. And he specifically tells that these beautiful necks were used just for special guitars to be
Okay.
showcased around. So this guitar was the first one that I got from '54, and it's to this day one of the most beautiful instruments I have ever seen or held, and sounds amazing. But again, this having a '54 Strat and the broadcaster have been a dream of mine since I was very young, and since when I got the first books from my dad, and whoever has tried these guitars can feel the same feelings as me, because even if you strum a few chords, you will hear the magic, and there's no replacement, no copy whatsoever that will do, you know.
That's beautiful. Oh my gosh. Show more.
Yeah,
You have
I
some custom color?
yeah, sure. Let me
Love
show
to see a
you.
couple of those.
Let me show you something. So this one, this one. So this is this is a 1958 Fender Stratocaster in factory black
Hmm.
that was owned by a gentleman by the name of Johnny Wilson from the band The Shades. That was a band whose singer, the name was John. I will remember it. Anyway, this guy was friend with Big Bopper.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was friend with him, and they recorded a song together called like Running Bear. But then Big Bopper died in the plane crash. So this band, the Shades, recorded the song in tribute to him, and they became big and successful a year later. So they got the guitar, and you can see Johnny Wilson with the Black Strat in the picture.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah.
See,
So
these backstories make the whole. It's
yeah,
all about that. Yeah,
Johnny Preston. Johnny Preston. This is the record.
beautiful.
So this is an incredible find that my friend John Schultz from True Vintage Guitars made for me. And again, there is an incredible story about this guitar because John called me on a Wednesday night just before I was going to bed. It was close to midnight down here. He found the guitar, but found no picture. And he was concerned about the originality of the color and how to prove it to other people. No, I mean, he knew it was real, but
Yeah,
it's different to prove it to people. And so he called me and he told me that if I wanted it, I could have had it for an interesting amount of money. And as my father always say, I can't pay you for 10 good reasons. The first one is that I don't have the money. So I didn't have the money, but the same week I was going to meet with Kirk Hammett from Metallica to sell him some guitars. And Kirk wanted my 59335 natural, a great guitar. I didn't want to sell it, but when this guitar popped it up, I was like, I need to have it. So I called,
you're a Fender guy through
yeah,
and through. Yeah,
yeah. So I called a dear friend of mine that basically purchased this guitar for me with with the absurd deal that I would have sold my 335 to Kirk a few days later. So nothing was sure about it. So
sure.
my friend secured this guitar for me, and then on Sunday I brought my 335 to Kirk, who loved it and tried it against Greeny and the famous 59, and it was a great you know, A/B test. So Kirk got the guitar, and then I could pay for the Black Strat. And
Oh, beautiful.
and this is an incredible piece because it was made in early '58. And you know which other guitar they painted in black in early '58? Eric Johnson Fay, a very famous 58 Strat that was stolen from him and then retrieved years later. And so it's really interesting how things interconnect. But the other very funny story is that how I got this picture, because there was no picture. And my friend John also offered to the widow $10,000 for just one picture, and which was for her was an insane amount of money, but not for us. I mean, it was very important.
Yeah.
So I started researching all the names of the guys in the band and discovered that Johnny Preston toured with a guy called Rob Bernard, another Cajun Creole singer from the era. And it turns out that his son is an historian of that culture. So I reached out and said, listen, I have found one picture from the year before where my guy has an acoustic. And I sent it to him. A nice Martin shaded top, by the way. And so this guy he's an historian. He gets a picture that he didn't have for free, was very happy and grateful, and said, listen, I don't have that picture of them, but I do have another one. I will send it to you tomorrow morning. He sent it to me, and it was
And
this
it
one.
was that one. Wow.
But
Which is what
yeah,
you wanted.
yeah, but wait for it. I want to show you also the other one, which is beautiful. This was the one that I found, and you can see that the guy said the music
Mm,
master,
yep.
and or Duosonic, and the Martin shaded top here.
Nice.
So my
Where were
guy
they?
had the Martin shaded top, and after they recorded Running Bear, that became a huge success, they both got Strats. There is a very beautiful Samber Strat with ash body for the other guitar player, and the black one. And and there is also still an amp around because he got a Tweed deluxe amp that John didn't sell to me yet, but he promised me that he will sell it to me one day. So hopefully I will match the guitar and the Tweed together. But I mean, this has been a funny story because I could have paid $10,000 for this picture, but I found it just by researching it. I researched the story, the names, until I found a connection with somebody still interested in these stories again. And a funny thing, when I met Joe Bonamassa, the first thing he asked me was, Francesco, you need to tell me how did you find that picture? And he was referring to this very picture because he wanted the guitar too, but there was no picture, so he was a bit unsure. And
Sure.
I mean, it's been an incredible journey, and that is what I love about these things, man. Because uh, it's so easy to lose everything, when we look back to historical facts and stuff, and it's so important to learn also how to do things, how to document things, how to preserve things. And given that my main thing is restoring guitars, most of the times the first thing to do is researching their story, what happened to the guitar, which
Right.
intervention were made, how they were made. And then once you have the knowledge, you have all the power you need to make things right.
Has that neck ever been removed from that guitar?
Listen, um, not, I believe John did it. I can't remember if I did, but because it's not really needed. But
Yeah.
it still has the original frets that are really low, man. But I have no art to change them because it does play, and it's a killer playing guitar.
Yeah.
So uh, it had a like a small route modification on the bottom of the bridge and middle pickups cavities, just because the guy wanted to install longer screws to adjust the pickup lowers. But it was really not that bad, honestly, and my
Yeah.
luthier fixed that. But that's it. It still had all the sort of joints intact, and sounds really really phenomenal. And I mean, it's a real black from 1958, so it's quite
I
a
want
guitar.
I want to personally thank you for helping save and document an important piece of Americana, and especially the music. And I love your approach. And I'm with you on Joe. Um, it kind of reminds me of people chipping away at Eric Clapton, regardless of his political views, issues he's had through the years. For me, getting Disraeli gears and fresh cream were seminal moments for me growing up, and I'll always love his guitar playing. You could never separate
Yes.
me from. And
But also let me tell you this: when people, I'm also a lover of Eric, of his story. Again, they should read his story before
yes,
commenting on what he's saying. He's always been an advocate for peace, no matter what. So he's not against really, this or that. He's for peace, which is different. So
yeah,
there is this thing that nowadays you have to be anti something all the time. But no, he's just an advocate for peace because he grew up in a very strange familiar family situation, very hard to discover for him. I mean, if you read his biography, it's amazing that the guy survived all the things that happened to him, to his friends. He has
yeah,
lost so many friends along the way. He has lost a
and it's like,
child. He
yeah.
lost a child. I mean, I believe he's one. I'm trembling when I'm thinking about these things.
Well,
He's been amazing on acoustic guitar. He's been amazing on a Fender Stratocaster. He's been amazing on a Les Paul. He's amazing on a 335 on SG. He's just unbelievable. A great singer, a great composer. I mean,
a
I
lot of
really love it.
a lot of great music came out of things were if you see pictures even in the late 50s, early 60s of parts of England after the war. I
Yeah.
mean, these were really depressing times for people from the UK, and I don't think people that pontificate about this or that about some of these artists and their views, whatever it might be, they came from a different generation, and it's not fair. As I get older, I'm realizing it's not fair to judge people like that. You can't. You have to put some context
No,
in it.
but exactly, but also because sometimes nowadays you get just is a small part of an interview where he said a few words, and then these words get twisted and
Yeah,
used in for to make a title, you know. But
yeah.
that's nonsense, and does not really apply to a guy like Eric Clapton. That to me is one of the greatest musicians we have ever witnessed. And I mean, I went to see him recently in Milan. He the guy is just unbelievable at 78 or 79 now 80. I can't remember the age, but I mean he was ageless on the stage, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Maybe if you know him well, in some passage on the electric guitar is kind of slower, but again, who cares? He
Well, I
was
called him slow hand.
fantastic. Yeah, exactly. So
Well,
he
I
was.
love the story. I read a story once where he said, I'm going back out on the road, but because I'm in the ocean all the time, I've lost all my calluses. I've got to build them back up. Anybody that plays guitar understands that. If you've been
Yeah.
without a guitar for a while, yeah, you lose all that. You know, you've been a wonderful guest, and I this has been one of my. I say this, maybe it's just because I'm really enjoying doing these interviews, but each one seems to be better than the last, and this one has been so enjoyable. I could talk to you forever, and I hope that we can do this again. Um,
Anytime.
I love it. You're again, so many thanks for trying to preserve what maybe a lot of us don't appreciate, the Americana piece of this, and which is when you think about how that is presented in Asia, in Europe, there seems to be a better appreciation of what we've created here at times. And I thank you, man. I really thank you. And make sure your son's one son, one daughter, right? Is that
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Make sure you were saying, I don't know what they're going to do with my guitars when perhaps you're gone. Make sure you put a story, not necessarily what they're worth. That's
Yeah.
something everybody says. Put the story inside those cases so they maybe understand the importance of what you've done. Thank you, Francesco. It's
Thank you
been
so
a
much.
real pleasure, brother. I'll talk to you soon, and thank you.
No, my pleasure, and thanks for having me. And anytime you want, I will be here and happy to discuss and talk about you about all these things that we love. And
I'm going to hold you to that. You know I will. Thank you so much, and have a one. It's getting late there for you. Have a wonderful evening.
yeah, but you know, working and having so much friends in United States, nighttime for me is like it's just a moment where I can share things with them, and I'm usually very late when I have to go to bed. But I really enjoyed this time with you tonight, and really would talk for days about these things. So
I could with you, yes, and much appreciated. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you
again,
soon.
ciao, thank you,
Bye bye.
bye.